They laughed at my hands. Not out of cruelty at first, just the kind of careless laughter that comes easy to young people who've never worked a day in their lives. But it cut deeper than they could ever imagine. Because these hands, the ones they called ruined, once built everything they now take for granted. And someday, I knew they'd understand. Though not the easy way. I'm Tom, 72 years old, retired carpenter, widower, and apparently a relic of the past in my own family. My son moved to the city years ago, started his construction firm. Ironic, isn't it? He uses tablets and drones now, while I once used nothing but a hammer, a saw, and a prayer. He's too busy to visit much, but every summer, my 3 grandkids come to stay for a week. It used to be the best time of the year. Used to. This summer was different from the moment they arrived. Ethan, 16, taller than me already, spent most of his time scrolling through his phone. Lily, 13, filmed everything for her summer vlog. And Max, the youngest at 10, followed their lead like a little shadow. When they stepped off the bus, they didn't even look up at the sky. The same blue sky I used to show them when they were small, telling them, that's the same sky I worked under when I built the bridge by the river. Hey, Grandpa, Ethan said without looking up. Does your Wi-Fi even work out here? I smiled anyway. You don't need Wi-Fi to see the stars. He rolled his eyes. Yeah, but you can't post stars on Instagram. That first evening I made dinner. Stew, the way their grandma used to make it. I reached for the pot and my left hand shook a little. It always does now. Decades of lifting timber, nails, and stone left it twisted, stiff, the knuckles swollen like knots in old wood. When I carried the bowls to the table, Ethan flinched. Grandpa, your hands, they look gross. Lily giggled, filming me. Guys, look! Grandpa's hands look like tree roots. Even Max laughed, unsure why, but laughing anyway. I said nothing. I just set the bowls down and sat quietly, staring at the hands they found so funny. I used to be proud of them. The calluses were medals to me once. Now they look like evidence of a life that didn't matter anymore. You know, I said softly, these hands built this table. Ethan shrugged. Cool, Grandpa. From the ground up, I added. Cut the wood myself. Every nail, every joint. Lily barely looked up from her phone. That's nice. They didn't care. They didn't even pretend to. Later that night, when they'd all gone to bed, I sat on the porch with my coffee. The moonlight made the scars on my fingers shine silver. I rubbed my palms together, listening to the faint creak of my joints, like an old house settling into itself. My late wife, Mary, used to sit beside me then, knitting or humming. She'd touch my hand and say, You've given these hands to the world, Tom. Someday the world will give something back. I'd always laugh at that. Now I wondered if maybe she was right. Maybe the world does pay you back, just not the way you expect. The next morning I heard hammering from the barn. My barn, which I'd built 40 years ago. Ethan had found my old tools and was using my hammer like a toy. Careful with that, I warned. Relax, Grandpa, it's just a hammer. I'm not a caveman. He swung it awkwardly and missed the nail completely, hitting the board sideways. The sound made me flinch. Maybe I'll just print something instead, he muttered, dropping the hammer. Later, they decided to explore the woods behind the house. The same woods where I'd spent half my life logging, clearing, and building trails. I followed a little behind, just to keep them safe. Lily filmed everything, narrating in that excited internet voice. And this, everyone, is my grandpa's ancient forest. Say hi, Grandpa. Ancient's right, Ethan laughed. I bet he planted these trees with those zombie hands. Something snapped in me then. Not anger, not exactly. Just a quiet, heavy sadness. The kind that settles deep in your chest. I stopped walking and looked down at my hands again. They were trembling. Not from age this time, but from holding back too many words. Do you kids know what's under these wood? I asked. Ethan shrugged. Dirt? No, work. Decades of it. I cleared this land by hand before your father was born. Every path you walk, every fence, every brick of that house, these hands made it happen. Lily lowered her camera. You built all of it? I nodded. Your father used to carry nails for me when he was your age. Said he wanted to build things just like me. The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds before Ethan muttered, well, now he builds things that actually matter. Big buildings, skyscrapers. Something in his tone stung more than I'd like to admit. That night they stayed inside watching movies while I went to the barn. The smell of sawdust and oil still lingered there. My smell, my past. I touched the old workbench, ran my fingers over the carvings on its edge. Each one a memory. Initials, dates, mistakes turned into lessons. I hadn't built anything in years, not since Mary passed. But suddenly I wanted to. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was pain. Maybe it was the ghost of her voice whispering, show them, Tom. The next morning I was up before dawn. I gathered wood from the shed, dragged it out piece by piece. My hands ached, but I didn't stop. The first hit of the hammer felt like breathing again. The echo of it rolled across the field, waking the birds. I built slowly, carefully, not sure yet what it would become. A bench maybe, or a table, something simple. When the kids came out hours later, sweaty and yawning, they found me covered in sawdust, hammering the final plank. Grandpa, what are you doing? Lily asked. Something I should have done a long time ago, I said. Ethan squinted. You're going to hurt yourself with those hands. Maybe, I said, smiling. But some things are worth a little pain. They didn't understand yet, but soon they would, because the thing I was building that morning wasn't just wood and nails. It was a lesson, one they were never going to forget. And by the end of that week, those same kids who mocked my broken hands would see what those hands could still do. By Tuesday morning, the pile of wood beside the barn was almost gone, and my hands had swollen twice their size. Each knuckle looked like a knot of stone, but I didn't stop. Pain I'd learned long ago is just another kind of tool. It teaches you where the limits are, and if you push past it, sometimes you find something worth the ache. Ethan came out first, half asleep and annoyed. Grandpa, seriously, you're still at it? You could just buy a bench from Home Depot. I looked up, squinting into the sunlight. Maybe, but where's the story in that? He shook his head. You and your stories. Stories are what keep things alive, I said. Without them, even the best wood turns to dust. He didn't answer, just walked back inside, muttering about Wi-Fi again. By mid-morning, I was sanding the surface smooth. The air smelled like cedar and sweat. Lily came out next, camera in hand. Grandpa, people online are asking what you're building, she said, smiling a little. Tell them it's a secret, I said. Something old making something new. She tilted her head, curious. Can I film you? If you want, but make sure you get the hands right. They're the real story here. She zoomed in on my fingers, the scars, the dirt under the nails. Gross, she murmured, though softer this time. Not cruel, more uncertain. I smiled. That's the look of work, Lily, the kind that doesn't wash off. When the sun dropped low, Ethan wandered out again. He sat on an upturned bucket and watched in silence while I hammered the last joint into place. You know, he said finally, Dad never builds anything with his hands anymore. He just sends plans to a printer. That's still building, I said, wiping my brow. Just a different kind. Yeah, but it's not the same, is it? Something shifted in his voice, the first crack in that wall of teenage arrogance. Maybe it was the rhythm of the hammer, or the smell of sawdust, or maybe just the realization that what I was doing looked harder than it seemed. I nodded toward the half-finished frame. Want to try? He hesitated. I'll mess it up. That's how you learn. Come on. I placed the hammer in his hand. It looked awkward, too heavy. He lined up the nail and missed twice, the sound of failure ringing through the quiet yard. Here, I said, moving behind him. Don't swing from your arm. Use your shoulder. Feel the weight. He tried again. The nail sank clean into the wood with a satisfying crack. His grin came fast and wide. That was, kind of awesome. I laughed. Feels good, doesn't it? That sound is the world answering back. By the time the sun dipped behind the barn, Ethan's palms were red and sore. Lily had stopped filming and was just watching, her phone forgotten on the grass. Even little Max came out, carrying lemonade for everyone. It was the first quiet evening we'd shared since they arrived. No screens, no noise, just work and the soft whistle of the summer breeze. That night after dinner, they didn't rush to their rooms. Ethan asked about the barn, about the old days, about the bridge by the river. "You really built that?" he asked. "Helped, yeah. Back when your dad was just a kid running around in the mud." "How long did it take?" "2 summers. My crew and I worked sunrise to sundown. Your grandma used to bring sandwiches at noon and make us rest under the oak tree." Lily leaned in. "The big oak near the fence?" "That's the one." I smiled. "We planted it the day we finished the bridge. Said it'd watch over the town longer than any of us could." They went quiet. For the first time, I saw something new in their eyes. Not pity, not amusement. Something like respect. On Wednesday, I finished the project. It wasn't a bench after all. It was a swing. Big enough for 3 with thick chains and smooth planks of polished cedar. The kind of swing Mary had always wanted for the porch, but never got to see. I tied the last knot, brushed the dust from my palms, and stepped back. When the kids came out, they froze. "Whoa," Ethan whispered. "Grandpa," Lily breathed. "It's beautiful." I smiled, though my hands throbbed. "Climb on. Let's see if it holds." They hesitated, maybe afraid it might break, maybe afraid to ruin it. "It'll hold," I said quietly. "I built it with my hands, the same ones you laughed at." Lily's face went red. Ethan looked away. Even Max whispered, "Sorry, Grandpa." I didn't say anything for a long time. I just watched them swing, laughter returning, soft this time, not cruel. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Let us know in the comments if you like the story. Thank you. That evening, while they played, I sat on the porch again. The rope creaked softly, a sound as old as my bones. Ethan came over and sat beside me. His palms were blistered, little red circles glowing against the skin. "Guess I get why your hands look like that now," he said. I chuckled. "Takes a few decades of mistakes to earn them." He was quiet a moment, then asked, "Does it ever stop hurting?" I looked down at my swollen fingers, the cracked nails. "No, but you get used to it. Pain's the price you pay for building. Something that lasts." He nodded slowly. "I think I get it. I hope so." Later that night, when the house was dark, I heard a noise outside, the creak of the swing. I peeked through the curtain and saw Ethan sitting there alone, rocking slowly under the stars, running his fingers along the wood grain like it was something sacred. The next morning, something changed. The kids didn't sleep in. They came out early before breakfast, asking if we could build something else. "What did you have in mind?" I asked, pretending not to smile. "A treehouse," Max shouted. "Right there, by the oak." Lily nodded. "We'll help this time." And Ethan said softly, "Teach us the way you learned, Grandpa." I looked at them. These kids who, just days ago, had laughed at the hands they now wanted to learn from. "All right then," I said, clapping my palms together. "Let's get to work." But as I picked up my hammer, I felt something strange. My hands trembling again, not from age, but from something deeper. Because the last time I built something under that oak tree, Mary was still alive. And as the morning light touched her old swing, I realized this lesson wasn't just for them. It was for me too. The morning we started the treehouse, the air smelled of dew and old wood. The oak stood proud behind the barn, its branches thick as memory itself, stretching toward the blue like they were reaching for all the years I'd left behind. That tree had seen everything. My youth, my marriage, my son's first steps, his first hammer strike, his first goodbye. Now it was about to witness something new, maybe even something healing. "Where do we start, Grandpa?" Ethan asked, holding the tape measure upside down. His voice had changed. It no longer carried that tone of boredom that city kids bring to the countryside. It sounded almost eager. "Start," I said, taking the measure gently from his hand, "by looking." "Looking at what?" "At the tree," I said. "A builder doesn't begin with tools. He begins by listening." They all stared at me like I'd said something out of a fortune cookie, but I didn't mind. Every real lesson sounds strange until it sinks in. I ran my palm along the bark, feeling its roughness. the heartbeat of the trunk beneath. This tree is alive, strong but not immortal. We build with respect, not on top of it. Lily turned off her camera. So, we don't just nail stuff anywhere? Exactly, I smiled. Even a tree deserves dignity. We spent the whole morning marking spots, cutting beams, and measuring boards. I let them make mistakes. Plenty of them. Ethan's first cut went crooked, Lily's paint dripped onto her sneakers, and Max hammered his thumb twice. But they didn't give up. Every miss brought laughter instead of complaints. Every mistake became part of the story. By noon, we'd built the first platform. Ethan wiped sweat. From his forehead, his face streaked with sawdust. "Grandpa," he said, "I didn't know working could feel good." "That's because you're not working for something," I said. "You're working with something. There's a difference." He looked confused, so I added, "When you work for something, you chase reward. Money, praise, comfort. But when you work with something, wood, earth, people, you become part of it, and that's what lasts." He didn't say anything then, but I could tell it landed somewhere deep. By evening, the first section of the treehouse stood firm, simple but strong. The kids sat on the platform, legs swinging over the side. The sunset painted their faces gold. I leaned back against the trunk, exhausted but content. "This is what Grandma wanted," I said softly. They turned to me. "Grandma?" Lily asked. "She always wanted a place like this," I said, smiling faintly. "A quiet spot to watch the world and listen to the wind. She used to say I'd never stop building until my heart stopped too." For a moment, no one spoke. The wind moved through the leaves, whispering secrets I hadn't heard in years. I could almost feel Mary beside me again, her hand resting on mine. When night came, the kids begged to sleep outside, so we set up blankets on the grass under the unfinished frame, the stars flickering through the gaps in the wood above us. "Grandpa," Max asked, "what did you build before this?" "Too many things to count," I said. "Bridges, schools, homes, but none of them matter more than this one." "Why?" "Because this one's for you." He fell asleep with his head on my arm. Ethan and Lily lay side by side, whispering quietly about how they'd decorate the walls tomorrow. I stayed awake long after they drifted off, staring at the half-built frame against the stars. I thought about my son, their father, and the distance between us. He used to be just like Ethan once, curious, proud, desperate to prove himself. Somewhere along the way, the world had taught him that success was cleaner when your hands stayed soft. He'd stopped visiting when Mary died, said work was too demanding, life too complicated. Maybe he was right, or maybe he'd just forgotten where he came from. The next day, while the kids worked on the railing, I took a drive into town for supplies. My truck groaned like an old friend with bad knees. The hardware store owner, Jack, still recognized me. "Tom Harper," he said, grinning. "Haven't seen you in ages. What are you building now?" "A lesson," I said. He laughed. "Don't tell me you're teaching those grandkids of yours how to swing a hammer?" I smiled. "Something like that." When I got home, I heard laughter from the yard. Real laughter, the kind that starts deep and can't be faked. The kids had finished the railing, uneven but sturdy, their clothes covered in sawdust and pride. "Look, Grandpa," Lily shouted. "We did it!" I looked up at the crooked boards, the wobbly paint lines, the nails sticking out just slightly wrong. It was perfect. "You sure did," I said, my chest tight with something that felt like joy. That night after dinner, they asked if we could call their dad to show him. Ethan held up his phone and started a video call. My son's face appeared, tired, half distracted. "Hey, Dad," he said, "everything okay?" "Better than okay," I said. "Your kids built something." "Really?" He smiled politely. "That's great. Listen, I'm in the middle of a meeting." "Just look," Ethan interrupted, turning the camera to the treehouse. For the first time in years, I saw my son's expression change, from polite detachment to genuine surprise. "You built that?" he asked. "With Grandpa's help," Lily said proudly. "He taught us everything." My son nodded slowly, eyes softening. "Looks good, Dad. Reminds me of the old days." "It should," I said quietly. "It's built on the same roots." He looked like he wanted to say something more, but his phone buzzed and he glanced away. "I'll call you later," he muttered. Then the screen went black. The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan looked at me, unsure. Was he mad? No, I said, forcing a smile. Just busy. The world has a way of making people forget what matters most. That's why we build things like this, to help them remember. Later that night, I sat alone again on the porch. My hands ached worse than ever. The skin was split along the knuckles, blood crusting over the scars. I poured warm water into a bowl, washed them slowly, and looked at them under the dim light. Broken, yes, but alive, still creating, still teaching. As I dried them, I noticed the swing moving slightly, though there was no wind. I looked closer and saw Lily standing there, her hair glowing under the moonlight. Couldn't sleep, I asked. She shook her head. I just wanted to say sorry, Grandpa. For what? For laughing at your hands. I didn't understand. I smiled. You do now. She nodded. They're beautiful, actually. I didn't know what to say. For a moment, my throat tightened too much for words. I just reached out and placed one of those same hands on her shoulder. They're only beautiful, I said quietly, because they've built something that lasts. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end, because one lesson still remained, one that none of them were ready for yet, and it would come soon when someone unexpected arrived at the door. It happened on Friday morning. The sun was already high, and the kids were arguing about whose turn it was to paint the railing when I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel road. A black SUV rolled up the driveway, the kind my son drove. My stomach sank before my heart even caught up. He stepped out in his pressed shirt, phone still glued to his ear, talking about budgets and clients and deadlines. Even from across the yard, he looked out of place here. Too polished for the dust, too busy for the quiet. Dad, he said, waving half-heartedly, you didn't tell me you were running a construction site. I wiped my hands on my old jeans. Didn't know I had to report in to headquarters. He smiled thinly. Funny. Then seeing the treehouse behind me, his eyebrows rose. You built that? Not just me, I said. Your kids did most of the work. Ethan, Lily, and Max came running, proud and breathless. Dad, look. Grandpa taught us how to hammer and everything. My son looked up at the crooked planks, the uneven boards, the splashes of paint where it shouldn't be. I could almost hear him calculating the imperfections. It's something, he said finally. Lily's face fell. It's not perfect yet, but he cut her off gently. No, it's great, honey. Just maybe Grandpa should rest. He's not young anymore. I felt the words like a tap on an old bruise. I'm fine, I said. Haven't felt this alive in years. He sighed, slipping his phone into his pocket. Dad, you don't need to push yourself like this. We can hire someone to fix the yard, build a real treehouse. Something safe, professional. Ethan frowned. But we built it ourselves. Yeah, with Grandpa's help, Lily added. My son looked at them, then at me. You let them use power tools? I could feel the anger rising, slow and hot. They use their hands, I said. The same way you once did, before you decided you were too good for splinters. He blinked, surprised. Dad, I didn't mean… Yes, you did, I said quietly. You mean well, always have. But you've forgotten what these hands can do. The kids were staring, wide-eyed. I turned away, my chest tight. I didn't want to argue in front of them, but the years of silence between us were heavier than any log I'd ever lifted. We stood there for a long time. Finally, he exhaled. I just came to bring the kids home early. We've got a trip planned. They start school next week. The words hit like a hammer. Early? They were supposed to stay till Sunday. I know, Dad, but things came up. The disappointment on the kids' faces broke something in me. Ethan kicked at the dirt. Do we have to go? Yes, his father said firmly. Go pack your things. When they disappeared into the house, it was just the two of us. Me and the boy I'd raised to be strong, who'd become a man too busy to remember who taught him strength in the first place. You know, I said, staring at the oak tree, your mother always wanted you to bring them here more often. He looked down. I know. She'd be proud of them. Proud of you too, if you'd let yourself slow down long enough to remember where you came from. He shifted uncomfortably. Dad, please don't start. I'm not starting anything. Just saying, I didn't build bridges and schools and this house just so you could build walls between us. The silence between us stretched. The wind rustled through the leaves above us, the same tree we'd planted together when he was 7. Do you remember this tree? I asked. He nodded slowly. Of course. You helped dig the hole. You got blisters that day. He smiled faintly. Mom made me lemon ice afterward. Yeah, I said softly. And you told me you wanted to build things that would last forever. He looked away, eyes glinting with something he didn't want to show. I guess forever's shorter than I thought. Before I could answer, Lily's voice called from the porch. Dad, Grandpa made something for you. I frowned. What? She ran back into the house and returned with a small wooden box. I recognized it instantly. I'd made it late one night earlier in the week, carving carefully despite my shaking fingers. It was plain, nothing fancy, but inside were old photographs. His first day of school, our fishing trips, the house when we first built it. On the inside lid, I'd carved one simple line. Everything you've built started here. He opened it slowly. For a long time, he didn't speak. Then he whispered, You kept these. I keep everything that matters, I said, even when you forget. He looked up and for a second, just a second, he wasn't a grown man anymore. He was the boy who used to hand me nails and ask, Am I doing it right, Dad? He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. For what? For a lot of things. He turned toward the treehouse. That's beautiful, you know. Not perfect, but beautiful. I smiled. Perfection's overrated. The best things in life are always a little uneven. When he left later that afternoon, the kids hugged me tighter than they ever had. We'll come back soon, Grandpa, Ethan promised. We want to finish the roof. I'll keep your hammers ready, I said. After the SUV disappeared down the road, I sat under the oak tree, the afternoon quiet pressing close. My hands throbbed, aching with a strange mix of pain and peace. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt too still. I wandered to the porch and looked at the swing, the one I'd built from the same wood as the treehouse. The moonlight made it glow like a memory come alive. I sat down, let it sway beneath me, and whispered into the dark. You were right, Mary. The world gave something back. Then I noticed something shining faintly at my feet. A small metal box. Ethan must have left it behind. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a note scrawled in messy handwriting. For Grandpa. Teach us more next time. Ethan. Next time. I held that note like it was gold, and for the first time in years, I felt the future reaching out again. Not in grand buildings or business deals, but in calloused palms learning how to hold a hammer. But I didn't know then that next time would come sooner than anyone expected, and that it would test everything I just taught them. The following week, the house felt emptier than ever. Their laughter still clung to the walls, faint and echoing, like sawdust caught in sunlight. I walked out every morning to the half-finished treehouse, touched the boards they'd nailed with their crooked hands, and smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. Then one gray afternoon, the phone rang. My son's voice was tight. Dad, it's Ethan. My chest clenched. What about him? He had an accident. My knees nearly buckled. What kind of accident? He was riding his bike home from school. A car ran a stop sign. The world tilted. I gripped the counter to steady myself. Is he? He's alive, he said quickly. Broken arm, a few stitches, concussion, but he's scared, won't talk much. I exhaled shakily, heart still hammering. I'm coming. I drove 3 hours straight to the city. My old truck groaned up the hospital ramp as rain began to fall, heavy and cold. Inside, I found my son pacing the hallway, his shirt untucked, his face pale. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of his usual composure. Dad, he said, voice cracking. He keeps saying he's useless now, that his hand's broken and he can't do anything. I felt something tighten in my throat. Take me to him. Ethan was sitting up in the hospital bed, his arm wrapped in a cast from wrist to elbow. His face was pale, eyes distant. He barely glanced up when I came in. Hey, champ, I said softly. Heard you took a flying lesson. He tried to smile but failed. Can't even hold a pencil right now. I'm so stupid. I sat beside him. The smell of antiseptic filled the room, sharp and clean and heartless. "You're not stupid. You're hurt. That's all." He shook his head. "You don't get it, Grandpa. I was supposed to play guitar at school next month. Now I can't even tie my shoes." I looked at his trembling fingers, one hand free, the other still and swollen. The sight hit harder than I expected. He was seeing for the first time what I'd seen in myself so many years ago. A hand that wouldn't obey, a piece of yourself that betrayed you. "Ethan," I said quietly, "can I tell you a secret?" He shrugged. "Sure. I broke this hand once too, years ago. Dropped a steel beam on it when we were building the bridge." His eyes widened. "You did?" "Oh, it was a mess. Doctor said I'd never swing a hammer again. Said I should find something else to do." "What did you do?" "I went home, sat on the porch, and stared at my hands for 3 days. Thought my life was over." He looked at me, waiting. "Then I realized something," I continued. "A hand doesn't build anything on its own. It's the will behind it that matters. And that," I tapped his chest gently, "is still working just fine." He blinked fast, fighting tears. "But what if I can't play anymore?" "Then you'll play something different. Build something new. We're builders, you and me. We find ways." The room went quiet. Rain tapped the window like gentle applause. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "Can you stay, Grandpa?" I nodded. "As long as you need me." That night, while he slept, my son and I sat in the hallway. The sterile light made his face look older. "He listens to you," he said quietly. "Always has." "He listens to the truth," I said. "You just forgot how to speak it." He looked down. "I never meant to make you feel small, Dad. I wanted to be more than what we were." I sighed. "Son, there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but never forget who taught you what enough feels like." He rubbed his eyes. "I know." Then softer. "He's lucky to have you." I smiled. "So were you." The next morning I came in early. Ethan was awake, staring at the little tray table where a nurse had left some modeling clay for therapy. He was poking at it awkwardly with his good hand. "Want to learn a trick?" I asked. He shrugged. "It's just stupid therapy stuff." "Maybe, but I've made plenty of stupid stuff that lasted 50 years. I sat beside him, rolled a piece of clay, and pressed my fingers into it, one knuckle at a time, slow and deliberate. The impression looked like a map of mountains. "See that?" I said. "Those lines mean you tried. You make enough of them, you've got something beautiful." He smiled faintly, tried it with his left hand, and winced. "It hurts," he said. "Good," I said. "That means it's working." By the time his father returned from a meeting, Ethan was laughing. Real laughter, not the hollow kind. He'd made a rough shape of a guitar out of clay, uneven and strange, but it looked alive. "Look, Dad," he said. "Grandpa says it's all about the will." My son looked at me over his head. "He's teaching again." I nodded. "Someone has to." When Ethan came home a week later, his cast still on, he asked if he could visit the farm again before school started. My son hesitated, then looked at me. "You up for it?" "Always," I said. So that weekend they drove back. All 3 kids, my son, and even his wife, who rarely came. The moment Ethan stepped out of the car, he ran straight to the treehouse. His cast gleamed white against the green of the oak. "Think I can still climb?" he asked. "Only one way to find out," I said. He climbed slowly, careful but determined, his one good hand gripping the railing he'd built himself. When he reached the top, he raised his cast in the air and shouted, "Still! Works, Grandpa." I laughed until tears stung my eyes. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Let us know in the comments if you like the story. Thank you. That evening, we all sat around the porch. My son grilled burgers, the kids told stories, and the air smelled like smoke and home. At one point, my son leaned over and said quietly, "You were right, Dad, about everything." I just smiled. "You'll have to be more specific." "About work, about what lasts, about these damn hands." He held up his own, soft, clean, but trembling a little. "I forgot what they were for." "They're for holding on," I said. "To what matters." He nodded slowly. "Maybe next summer, We'll build something together. All of us. I'll hold you to that, I said. That night when everyone went to bed, I walked out to the swing again. The moon hung low, painting silver lines on the yard. I looked down at my palms, swollen, scarred, but steady, and I whispered to the quiet night, they finally understand. But as I turned to go inside, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from my son. Dad, thank you. I found something in your old toolbox. Mom's initials carved under the lid. I never noticed before. I think it's time we finish what you two started. I sat there for a long time, the phone warm in my hand. The wind moved through the oak like a whisper of her voice. Soft, proud, forgiving. Maybe some lessons don't end with words. Maybe they live on in the things we build, and the hands that learn to build after us. But life still had one more surprise waiting for me, and it came the following summer, when the tree house wasn't the only thing being rebuilt. The following summer came with a softer kind of sunlight, the kind that doesn't blind you, just warms what's already healing. The grass had grown tall again, the barn leaned a little more, and my tools waited in their usual place, quiet, loyal, patient. I thought maybe this would be the year when nothing dramatic happened, when life could finally just breathe. But that was before the letter arrived. It was from the town council. I hadn't heard from them in years. The envelope was crisp, official looking, and it made my gut twist before I even opened it. Inside, a short notice. Dear Mr. Harper, the council has approved redevelopment of the East Riverbank. Demolition of the old pedestrian bridge will begin July 10th. The bridge, my bridge, the one I built with my own hands 40 years ago. I just sat there on the porch, the letter shaking in my fingers. That bridge wasn't just wood and bolts. It was memory nailed into the bones of this town. I'd bled for it. Mary and I had carved our initials under the railing the day we finished it. I taught my son how to swing a hammer on that bridge. It was the first thing I ever built that truly mattered, and now they were tearing it down. That evening, when my son and the kids arrived for their summer visit, I didn't have the heart to tell them right away. They came full of life, laughter, and plans for finishing the treehouse roof. But while they worked, I just watched, trying to hold back the feeling that something sacred was slipping away. It was Ethan who noticed first. Grandpa, what's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, champ, just tired. He frowned. You never look tired. You look thinking. Later, while the others were busy painting, I showed him the letter. His face fell. They can't do that, he said. It's your bridge. I shook my head. It's the town's now. They own the land. Progress, they call it. Progress sucks, he muttered. I almost laughed. Sometimes it does, yeah. That night, after everyone went to bed, I drove out to the river. The headlights swept across the wooden planks, still solid after all these years. The water shimmered beneath it, whispering the same old lullaby I used to fall asleep to when Mary and I came here as kids. I ran my palm along the railing, felt the grooves, the grain, and there it was. T+M, 1984. Still faint, but alive. I sat there until the moon climbed high. Then I made up my mind. The next morning, when the kids came down for breakfast, I was already in my work clothes. Where are you going, Grandpa? Max asked. To fix something before it's gone, I said. Can we come? Ethan asked. I hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, you should see this. We drove down to the river together, the truck rattling over the dirt road. When they saw the bridge, their eyes widened. You built this? Lily asked softly. Every plank, I said. Me, your dad, and 6 good men who aren't here anymore. The bridge creaked under our feet as we walked across. The wood was still strong, the bolts still held, but at the far end, yellow paint marked the demolition boundary. I could almost see the machines waiting, engines ready to erase my life's work. Ethan touched the railing gently. We can stop them. I smiled sadly. Maybe not, but we can make sure they remember what they're destroying. That afternoon, I gathered what I needed: paint, brushes, old nails, and one signboard from the barn. The kids helped without asking questions. Together, we cleaned the bridge, sanded the rough spots, and painted the boards that had started to rot. What's this for? Lily asked as I brushed on a fresh coat of varnish. For pride, I said, and for memory. If something has to end, let it end looking like it deserves to be remembered. We worked till sunset. My hands shook more than they used to, and Ethan noticed. You should rest, Grandpa. Can't, I said, smiling. Some things you only get one last chance to do right. When it was done, we stood back and looked at it, the old bridge gleaming gold in the dying light. On the wooden sign we'd nailed to the railing, Lily had painted the words in bold, careful letters, built by hands that love this town. The next day, people started coming. First neighbors, then old friends, then strangers with cameras. Someone posted a photo online, and soon the whole town was talking about it. By the end of the week, the council postponed the demolition. They called it a matter for reconsideration. But I knew what really changed their minds. It wasn't politics, it was pride. It was love. It was a bridge that refused to disappear quietly. The day the mayor came to see it, I stood by the railing with my grandkids beside me. He shook my hand and said, Mr. Harper, we didn't realize what this bridge meant to people. That's the thing about meaning, I said. You don't see it till someone shows you the hands that built it. When he left, Ethan grinned. You saved it, Grandpa. I looked down at my trembling fingers, the skin rough and cracked but glowing in the sunlight. No, I said. We did. That night, the kids sat with me on the porch, eating ice cream, laughing, their hands sticky and full of life. My son joined us later, quietly placing his phone on the table, screen down. He looked out at the oak tree, the swing, the faint glow of the bridge lights in the distance. You were right again, Dad, he said softly. About what this time? He smiled. About what lasts. I looked at all of them, my son, my grandkids, their laughter weaving through the night air like music. And for the first time, I didn't feel old. I felt finished in the best way, complete. I reached out my hands, scarred and swollen, palms open toward the stars. These hands built bridges, I whispered, but the best thing they ever built was you. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. Ethan took my wrist gently, tracing the lines with his thumb. They're not broken, Grandpa, he said quietly. They're perfect. And I finally believed him. The night wind carried the scent of cedar and river water, the smell of everything I'd ever loved. The world around me hummed with life, with laughter, with work that would keep on long after I was gone. And as the moonlight touched the bridge, my hands stopped trembling. Because after all these years, they'd done their job. If you like the story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and write in the comments if something like this has ever happened in your life. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for watching.